Very good evening, Namaste, and welcome to Citti Media. My name is Sharan Citti, and I'm your host. India just a couple of months ago said that it noted the agreement between Bhutan and China on a three-step roadmap to expedite negotiations to resolve their boundary conflicts. The signing of the pact came nearly 4 years after the Indian and the Chinese armies were locked in a 73-day standoff at the Doklam Tri-Junction after China tried to extend the road in that area that Bhutan rightfully claims it's theirs. Now, what are the implications of such exercises on the bilateral relations between India and Bhutan and China, and India and China is what I'm going to be asking some of my key panelists today. Now, also, how is this going to affect the sensitive areas around that region, especially the Siliguri corridor, is what is also going to be discussed because China is actively trying to get a definitive response from Thimphu since the border dispute negotiations have been going on for several years now. Recent developments have also suggested that there is a growing perception in Bhutan where it acknowledges the limitations of dependence on India for its internal security and to combat the Chinese aggression. Joining me today is a very eminent list of panelists, beginning with Lieutenant General Dushyant Singh. He has commanded an infantry battalion, brigade, and a division in Kashmir and served as the Inspector General of Operations in the elite National Security Guards. He has also, among many other appointments, served as the Chief of Staff for Eastern Command. Major General Sudhakarji, who was here in the Vaishali dialogue last time, joins us again. Is a former colonel of the Mahar Regiment and is one of the very few people who has served across the three sectors of the northern border with China. And finally, joining us today is Major General Dr. A.K. Bardalai. Among other assignments, has served as the commandant of Indian military training team in Bhutan between 2011 and 14. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining me today. And this is such an important issue to be discussed. And first of all, it's an honor. And let me take a minute to humbly convey my pranams to all of you for all the seva and sacrifice that you've done to this country. And of course, because of people like you is why people like us here in the mainland part of India are sitting safe, exercising our different fundamental freedoms. On that note, let me begin by asking General Dushyant Singh, sir, as the Sino-Indian military to military talks continue to remain inconclusive, the Chinese have made certain progress in their attempts to settle this boundary dispute with Bhutan. What are the fallouts of this in terms of our proximity to Bhutan, which has been there, and the bilateral relations with both the countries?
Saran, it's the most logical question which comes to the mind of any security expert or any Indian for that matter, because Bhutan till now has been guided for foreign policy by India. This time round, Bhutan went directly to China and came up with the MOU to settle the border disputes. This is a departure from the existing policy, and therefore a matter of great concern as far as India is concerned. How will it impact India? It has tremendous scope for China to put pressure indirectly on India. That is to say, should the Doklam issue be resolved as has been one of the proposals in the past, that you take away the northern, he gives the northern areas to the dispute in the northern Bhutan to Bhutan and takes the Doklam plateau as resolved by taking it as part of the Chumbi Valley, that would imply a direct threat to Siliguri without any defensive line for us. So therefore, the Siliguri corridor then comes under a direct threat from, it would be a strategic threat as far as we are concerned. And that is something which is acceptable as far as India is concerned. So that is first major implication of this. However, there has been a silver lining in this, in the sense that I have also read some reports wherein possibly the Bhutan government had some tacit approval of India before they went in for the MOU with China. This is something which is just a kind of I would say some conjectures have been made in the domain. I am not very sure whether it is correct or not, because after all, at the end of the day, it is just an MOU to settle the borders. The borders haven't been settled, right?
Right.
So if we look at it from that point of view, I think the status quo still remains maintained, and
Right.
we should try and at any cost not to have the Doklam area going the Chinese way.
Right.
So I don't want to mention the specific areas which are very critical to us for our defense, but at least that Doklam Plateau issue must remain in favor of Bhutan,
Right.
up to an area which both the countries have agreed to accept it as an international border. That
Right.
is that, in my view, is the major implication of this agreement.
Right. Because, just a small follow-up on that, the kind of reaction that the Indian state has also given to this particular MOU, do you think it's a bit of a stretch, especially because, since MOUs are not really legally binding, and the second factor is that these talks have been going on for years together. So what is a conclusive factor that, this can be actually materialized into something more productive in terms of settling the boundary dispute?
You see, with China, you cannot be very sure of what it is having the actual intent.
Right.
As far as China is concerned, talks are meant to buy time, to ultimately achieve its aim. Now, if you look at the overall boundary perspective of China, it has resolved the borders with all the countries except India and Bhutan.
Right.
So the new land laws which have border laws which have come up by China exactly 2 weeks after the 14th round had failed are somewhere indicative of the fact that it wants to isolate India.
Right.
And while it cannot resolve the Bhutan boundary issue without the Indian consent, it has given a signal to India that they are keen and intent on resolving the Bhutan border directly with them.
Right.
Which would mean that the entire focus of the world would go toward India as to what is so wrong with India that India cannot resolve the border dispute. So therefore,
Right.
in my view, despite what has happened in Galwan, etc., I think we need to also send some signals where we convey our intent that yes, we are also keen to resolve the boundary dispute, of course, without compromising our national security when we do this kind of an action. So I think we need to send signals. Maybe they are just signals and they are not like something like an MOU where we show our intent to resolve the India-China boundary dispute.
Right.
That would be the solution to this MOU bit which has been sent out by the China-Bhutan agreement.
Right. And a few experts have also feared that, Bhutan may be reeling under China's hegemonic influence. General Bordala, do you share the same concerns when you look at the developments in the last 2-3 weeks?
Sharon, my views are slightly different in the sense that, yes, it is understandable that since the first time it has become public that MOU has been signed,
right.
Anyone who do not have much detail into it, what has gone to it, up to it, signing the MOU, would possibly feel that Bhutan is in the bag of China, the way the Bharat Kanraj had put it. I don't blame that. But to begin with, there is a lack of inadequate input. Reason being that these China and Bhutan boundary agreement has been going on for a long time, since 80s.
Right.
I think 24 boundary agreement discussions have taken place so far without any results, of course. Next point is that given the relationship between Bhutan and India, it is actually a gravitational pull that attract India or the Bhutan towards the Indian side. It is also easier for Bhutanese people to do business with India. That is one. Second, the motive of the power in Bhutan, maybe it is their own interest. It is better to remain more aligned with India because India does not interfere in their affairs than with China.
Right.
And a third issue is that because of the relationship, with strong relationship starting from Punakha Treaty 2010 onwards, right up to 2007, is understandable then any discussion which will take place Bhutan and China about boundary, since it's affect India, it cannot take place without a kind of the process of consultations.
Right.
How do you define this word consultations? It can vary from a person to person. So there are certain issues. They both China had projected certain areas, their line of claim they call it. In turn, Bhutan has projected some claims. It has been going on for a long time.
Right.
But China has been very keen to replace India from the India's area of influence by establishing diplomatic relationship,
Right.
and also claiming certain part of the area. This because of the security reason. It has not happened.
Right.
And as far as signal is concerned, they have been given signal time and again, whether it is a parliamentary elections or new event, they have been sending their troops into the Doklam area to giving them slightly kind of hard signal.
Right.
So therefore, to say that this MOU has been signed, that without consultations of India, I mean, completely unbelievable. And I cannot tell you in black and white. I have got a lot of reasons to believe with conviction. I can state this is a part of a process of consultations.
Right.
Now, why India has agreed that Bhutan should get into the agreement with China as a different issue. Maybe we have become more mature over a period of time. Now, to say that now what happens that when you make reports like Bharat Kanrad has done it based on inadequate input, his inputs should have been much more than what inputs available to the public. Normally what happened when you talk of Bangladesh, when you talk of Sri Lanka, when you talk of Nepal, general public opinion is that, and this helped the political dispensation, whichever it is, the feed into them that look, these are the countries that survive because of us. Now they have grown out of the proportion. What happened to solve a problem between the two nations? The people to people contact, a part of the people is very important.
Right.
And when you feed such information like Bharat Kanrad has done it, that it has been signed without consultation. And MEA spokesman, Baxi, I think, who made a statement by keeping quiet, he has not helped much. So what happened? There's anger amongst the population, like many of our veterans and the senior serving officers who do not know the real thing, because a lot of issues are classified. I can't even discuss. So point is that anger. So what happened when the Bhutanese people come to India? We go to Bhutan. The relationship which should have been there between Bhutan and India, they are the first one to take side as well, 71 and 62, mind it, okay, whatever capability. So I feel this is a correct step that Bhutan cannot do without, let me tell you, establishing of, because it is very difficult to survive, for Bhutan to survive between two nations. Right. And we should be able to help them. How we can create a situation for them to be able to survive, yet without costing our security interest. And to this, I think it is a positive step. And I believe that India has encouraged indirectly, even if they have not publicly, to go and sign an agreement with government of China. So it will help Bhutan to solve the boundary problem. If the boundary problem is solved, I think a lot of our problem in that area would be solved.
Right. But this is different in case of, say, Nepal and Bangladesh, because they have been able to learn the art of monkey balancing somehow, where they, in certain sections, they do appease to the Chinese and they do maintain good relations with India. But can this be anticipated in case of Bhutan, Chal Sudhakarji?
Yes. Sharan, firstly, thank you very much for inviting me again to your channel, and heartiest congratulations. All your products seems to be making a wave at a place where it actually makes a difference and it's being heard. Heartiest compliments. Before I respond to your question, I just want to make very quick points to put things into perspective. Firstly, Siliguri corridor. because it is for different types of viewers. People need to know what is the Siliguri corridor. When we talk about Siliguri corridor, it is that corridor, the width of which at the narrowest point, it is just about 17 kilometers. There are two national highways come and converge in this corridor, National Highway 33 and 53, 51, if I'm not wrong. There is a railway line passing through. There is an airport, Bagdogra Airport, which is about 12 kilometers from the center of the city. And it is considered, it is actually the de facto, the largest city in West Bengal. I also didn't know when I was actually doing research, I came across, and the population of, it is a subdivision.
Right.
It has got 47 tea estates. The population is close to almost about 8.5 lakhs, out of which 5 lakh plus are in the rural areas and rest are actually in the urban area.
Right.
So, okay. So with that, I just want to bring out one factor, the importance and the relevant issues which are important as far as Siliguri corridor is concerned. There is a ridge known as Jamperi Ridge. Jamperi Ridge crow flight distance is approximately 12 kilometers crow flight distance. Jamperi Ridge is the place where you have Royal Bhutan Army, one of the posts located. That is the point where the PLA earlier used to come via a Doklam post just in front of the post and along the ridge line coming up to this Jamperi Ridge and going back. They wanted to construct a road which they were halted. But of late, we are getting news that after having been halted at that particular point, kind courtesy, the Doklam incident of 2017, they have taken a detour, they have diverted, they have actually skirted around, and there is a road going up the ridge and running for the southerly direction towards the Siliguri corridor. There are a lot of accommodations which have been built. There is a lot of helipads which have come up, and also a lot of developments which are taking place. This is one part. Second part I wanted to actually cover also is very, very important that with regard to Siliguri corridor, why is it important? Besides being a communication center, it's very famous for 3 T's: the timber, the tea garden, and the tourism. Tourism because of Darjeeling, and they also have a sanctuary nearby. And timber, we are very familiar with that. Okay, and it is the only gateway. It is the gateway to northeastern states. If this corridor is chopped off, or if it is cut off with some kind of offensive movement by the adversary through Chumbi Valley, which is not very difficult, there at the moment, if you take a crow flight distance from the nearest point up to which they have developed their infrastructure, it's roughly 33 kilometers. So therefore, it goes without any exaggeration that yes, the threat is not potential, but it is imminent. So
Right.
as military people in the discussion, my point of view would be to firstly identify what is it all about. Very quick points. 1961, India and Bhutan went in for diplomatic relationship. 1971, if I'm not wrong, it's at the behest, at the request of India, Bhutan was given the membership of the United Nations. And as on today, it has got diplomatic relationship with 54 countries in the world, less those 5 permanent members. It's very important to note that none of the permanent members of the United Nations Security Council have got diplomatic relations with Bhutan. China is going head over heels to do anything and everything, somehow or the other, secure or diplomatic relationship, which other permanent members haven't got so far.
Right. And do you think this is more symbolic than strategic? What they're trying to do by establishing a diplomatic mission in Bhutan?
My take on the whole issue is that, you see, we need to understand why China is doing what it is doing. To me, it appears that China's ultimate aim is to be a superpower by 2049. Before he becomes a global power by 2049, he has to fulfill certain parameters. One of the parameters is economy. Another parameter is within the region, he has to be accepted as a regional power. He is not willingly being accepted as a regional power. Therefore, going by the legacy of its historic and traditional practices, if you read the history of China, you'll come across a chapter which says traditionally China as a middle kingdom, one of the fundamental paradigm of the statecraft is to suppress the neighbors.
Right.
That answers a lot of queries. Why is it behaving the way it is behaving with all the neighbors? So therefore, it is more than the strategy. Firstly, it has to assert itself, prove itself, and make itself acceptable to the regional, the regional powers, the neighbors, and thereafter it gets going with achieving its milestones of becoming a superpower by 2049.
Right. Thank you so much, sir. General Dushyant Singh, what General Sudhakarji is saying, that there is also a very historical pattern to what the Chinese are doing right now. But apart from that, what India is perhaps doing to Pakistan by trying to sort of isolate it on a international level, do you think China is trying to replicate the same? But of course, the degree to which they're effective is perhaps questionable. But is that being done? Especially because it's also highlighting the fact that they've been able to settle so many boundary disputes with other countries, but in the case of India, it's not been able to do so.
Absolutely true. I am in fact convinced that China is isolating India. And I'll quote about 10, 11 actions of China which convey this kind of activity. 8 submarines given to Pakistan, 18 of Pakistan, 8 of China, makes it, and plus 68 Chinese added when they go through the South China Sea and onto the Arabian Sea. That's a huge cause of worry as far as India is concerned. Karakoram Highway, Wakhan Corridor. The Chinese primary intention of showing presence in this part of the world is essentially to secure its alternative to Malacca dilemma. And CPEC is one of the primary flagship projects of BRI, which actually, if fails, then China's, the Xi Jinping's, the entire dream of BRI will fail. Because that is the only project which has some semblance of being completed.
Right.
From that perspective, if you take your mind back, for the first time in the history of China, a Chinese president visited Tibet and Xinjiang.
Right.
It was Xi Jinping few months back. He has not gone abroad for 650, now it's almost 700 odd days, but he had to visit these areas because he wants to show the intention of China that it means business in Xinjiang.
Right.
Point 3, Baidu Earth stations have been established in Pakistan for what? To de-link their dependence on GPS and make the Chinese Pakistanis close to each other. Transfer of MIRV technology to Pakistan. There are very strong rumors that this is being done by China. For what? Why is Pakistan being given the MIRV technology? Not to be used against Central Asian republics. Obviously, it is India. And the Chinese would like it to be through Pakistan because they themselves won't like to be seen as, this is a very, very common ploy of a gray zone warfare. Take the next issue. Posting of Pakistani military officers in the Xinjiang and Tibet district for what?
Right.
Pakistanis have placed their officers in these parts of the country for what? Basically, they know the way the Indian army operates. The Chinese thought they can roll over India. Galwan proved them wrong. In fact, number of Indians also feel that we could have been easily rolled over by China. But the Galwan incident actually proved everything wrong. And the Chinese are now taking that very seriously. So therefore, they are requesting the Pakis to have advisors in their headquarters in Xinjiang and Tibet military provinces. Collusivity in Depsang with China for what? Article 370. The new land laws which have been given, which have been taken out by China after the recent border talks failed 2 weeks later, essentially is a counter to our Article 370, where we said that Gilgit-Baltistan will be part of India, which is a direct threat to Pakistan. China. Next, Doklam. I've already covered that in my first part of the response, why Doklam is important. I didn't want to go into the specifics of the ridges, etc., for reasons of security, and that is why I didn't like to mention that. Suffice it to say, it's the only route to the Northeast 7 states.
Right.
So therefore, the solution for us lies in finding an alternate to the chicken neck. Moment we have that, our half the battle will be won. But what have the Chinese done? They have prevented us from utilizing the IWT corridor between India and Bangladesh. They have stymied the Kaladan project. These were the alternate which we were finding for the Northeast. But the ISI has somehow delayed the IWT project, which would have gone through Bangladesh onto our northeastern state. That would have opened up our trade traffic without any hassles or without any over dependence on the Siliguri corridor.
Right.
We need to push those projects with Bangladesh. If we can't do it now, when the government of Bangladesh is, you can say that it is friendly to India,
Right.
then we possibly cannot do it later if somebody else comes into power. Internal security troubles of China, where are they? They are in Xinjiang. They are in Tibet, not in the Han-dominated areas. So therefore, this area after Taiwan, Hong Kong, it has been able to resolve by again using a legislation, National Security Act, which they took out in Hong Kong, and they managed to suppress the uprisings there. They are trying to do a similar thing in Tibet, that they would use the police and the PLA to actually control the borders. So they would be entitled to use harsh measures against their own people. The word says aggressors. They would, the police and the military can use all means to prevent aggressors or infiltrators from crossing the borders. They are not even mentioning of line of actual control. Right. Take the issue of Indo-Nepal border. They have started constructing a road along their eastern flank. Now couple this Chumbi Valley with the eastern flank of Nepal. Right. What are you seeing?
Some sort of an encirclement.
You are seeing a direct threat to the chicken neck corridor.
Right.
Then last and not the least, I would say that economically too, I think we have not been able to find a alternate to the Chinese. See, we were able to reduce the trade deficit to a great level in last year, after the clarion call. But clarion call can only give you a momentary relief. You need to have a plan to reduce the trade deficit. Today, it stands at $47 billion. Till October, it was $90 billion was the trade highest amongst any country. And it is likely to cross the $100 billion mark by the time December ends. The figures are still to be out. What I'm trying to say is there is a concerted effort, but at the same time, the Chinese have left some room open for us also to carry out certain activities by which we can defeat the Chinese at their own game. We need to give them the signals that we are also open to resolving the boundary dispute. You see, after they took out the land laws after the failing of the agreement, the border talks between India and China, they issued a statement saying that these land laws will not affect the ongoing talks on borders with various countries. Where was it targeted? It was targeted for India and Bhutan. Right. It was immediately followed by the MOU.
It's very interesting that you say this, but we'll also focus on a solution-oriented segment in a bit. But General Bordoloi, you were mentioning about Mr. Bharat Karnad, and Mr. Bharat Karnad also mentioned the increasing vulnerability to this particular chicken neck corridor that clearly faces threats from the Chinese. You've served in Bhutan for about 2 years or more than 2 years, and you've seen the area very closely. You have a very good understanding of the people and the government there and the army too. What would your assessment of this situation be?
So this threat to Siliguri corridor is not new. It was there even 1950s. Soon after China took over Tibet, the Harissa Dayal was a political commissioner in Sikkim. He wrote that time that if China decide to invade both Bhutan and Sikkim, this will be a threat to our side, that is a Siliguri side. So therefore, he suggested that we should go and occupy the Chumbi Valley. That is one.
Yeah.
That was that time.
Correct.
But another way of looking at things is that Chumbi Valley has been an Achilles heel to China. The geographically the way it is located. We look at it from Indian side that should he decide to expand Chumbi Valley both east to west and towards the south, he'll be getting closer to the Siliguri corridor. I agree that the threat was there to Siliguri corridor at that point of time. It's about 7 decades almost after China came to Tibet. There have been geopolitical changes, economic gap has reduced, and the changes and our status military capability has increased. We are not that India, who China could defeat us in 1962. You have seen, but they have also learned a lesson in Galwan, what we can do, what we cannot do, even including Nathula. So therefore, threat was there. It is still there. But at that point of time also, it was actually a one corridor which connect to Northeast. Things have changed. Air communication. It is not East Pakistan anymore. We have got Bangladesh also with us. So like Jan Dushan has said that we must look for an alternate area. Now, if that threat was there, if it is still there, so if they come and occupy further down south, how big the threat would be to Siliguri corridor? One way of looking at things, if they come to Jamfari Reach, like Jana Sudhakar has highlighted, they'll be able to 19 kilometers like crow fly, they'll be able to roll down. Is it possible to roll down? If they roll down, do you think Indian Army, which is sitting, including Gamochin Hill and Eastern Sikkim, is it that easy? I think if it's that easy, then all of us should go home. Second point that another argument could be that no, they can have surveillance capability. But at today's age, do you need the physical surveillance capability fixed on ground? We don't need that. We are technology. So therefore, threat is there. But another way of looking at things is that when I said that it is a Chinese Achilles heel, that they always worry the narrowest point in the Chumbi Valley being about 20 kilometers, less than 20 kilometers, their fear of aggression from one side, that Indian side from the west, and with the collusion with Royal Bhutan Army from the east. So only way they mitigate threat is there, expand the size of the Chumbi Valley, both width-wise and length-wise. They have got better room for maneuver, that is one. And also that they prevent Indian Army to have direct observation and dominate in the valley deep. You just have to look at the Google map. And from that point of view, they all along they have been saying, so China have not said in those point of time that this is our Achilles heel or a fear of aggression by India. Neither India has said, these are my personal views. So India has been playing the card of the threat to Siliguri corridor to a level may not be. I think this is a military debate. I don't want to talk many more about that. But I would also pass a comment that the presence of threat factor is very important for survival of many nations. For example, if in the Middle East, if Hezbollah was not there or Israelis were not there, for example, hypothetical example, how do you think Hezbollah would be able to holding on to the arms? It's very important. Okay. Same is the case of our internal conflict in our country. Look at Northeast or the Kashmir. If the threat was not there, it will be very difficult for some people to survive. I'm sorry to say I'm digressing, personal opinion. So therefore,
it's actually very
corridor was
that
there.
You bring this up.
Sorry?
It's actually very good that you bring this up. I do have a question, but I'll...
okay. Now, I have a map. I can show it to you, the threat to Siliguri corridor. If you have got time, I can share a map. Can I share?
Sure, please do.
When you look at its size, now the Doklam area, they came. You see, I mentioned in my earlier intervention that during all these negotiations or discussion which had taken place, they will project a line, Bhutan government will project another line. In an area everywhere, one area remained constant. They had initially asked right up to now also that Gamochin is not the tri-junction. They said that, okay, they wanted Gamochin to be part of that entire area. Because this area is very tactically, militarily very important to them. But all along that area, one area remained constant in their compromise line, compromise area, the Doklam area. That was the not negotiable factor. And to that extent, they have suggested we are ready to barter certain very non-descriptive, non-important area of the somewhere central Bhutan in Pal. But what happened is that negotiation never moved forward. And finally, I think they want to send a signal. Finally, they moved into Doklam area to send a signal. We said that a standoff, disengaged, we never disengaged. And to say that we can reclaim Bhutan is a big dream. You see the photograph, the helipads have come in, and anywhere in the world where Chinese have come in, they were not gone back. So that will always remain an issue of debates, and we'll continue to discuss unless we can solve the problem once for all. Either by giving assurance to China that we do not have that belligerent intention, or we do something so that they do not move further south militarily. I think the problem will remain.
But in this case, we are not the aggressors, the Chinese are, right? So the first move has to come from the Chinese side.
Well, I think to say that a move has not come or they have not used a third party to give signal to us will be wrong.
Right.
I'm very sure in the past, Bhutan, the boundary negotiation is taken care by the fourth king, his majesty. But whenever he had given a suggestion, he used to suggest in a manner that is going to be workable. I can assure you that when they give suggestion like workable, where some consultation would have taken place. But when they give a suggestion like that, general feeling in India, including among the bureaucracy, that somewhere they have been mixed up in vested interest. But when that case, I would ask a question, what would be the motive of the Bhutanese royalty to go towards China and not towards India?
Right.
I mean, there are many more issues that I don't want to discuss now.
Sure.
But I'm convinced from my personal experience, I cannot document it, of course.
No, this is exactly the growing concern as well. And General Sudhakarji, what General Bardula says is actually right, because Dhaka and Thimphu of late have been keeping their options open, and that is definitely not a good sign for China, for India. So what do you think are the possible ramifications of this?
Well, the ramifications are very straight and simple, that both our flanks as on today, Afghanistan-Pakistan corridor and the Bangladesh. It's very sad to actually share in your channel that they have been radicalized. They become not the epicenter, they're the fountainheads of radicalization. Okay, you're talking about Bangladesh. Now let's talk about Thimphu. Thimphu, the day is not far. As on today, out of 7,50,000 population of Bhutan. Bhutan is a country, it's not a very big country. It's about 350 kilometers long east-west and 150 kilometers north-south if you divide. In that, we have 60,000 Indian population working for hydroelectricity and different kinds of business and infrastructure development. Similarly, every day, earlier it used to be 8 to 10,000 people going to and fro into Bhutan every day and coming back, the workforce, daily labor. Oh, what I'm trying to bring it is that yes, the answer is it's quite writ large on the wall. It's written on the wall. Therefore, to find an answer, much more accurate answer to your question, I was doing little research. Is it what that we very loosely make a comment like this? Are we big brothers to the smaller neighbors? I was trying to find out, and I was surprised to see right from the first 5-year plan, which started in 1961 for Bhutan, the first 2 5-year plans were completely financed by India. Thereafter, some percentage, there has been never ever less than 20-21% of the total budget we have financed. In addition to that, there is the foreign aid which is being given. I'll give you an example. This year itself, 2021-22, India has already allocated and also I think been already disbursed. It's around 3,004 crores given to Bhutan out of a package of 7,100 crores for all neighbors, including Latin America, Eurasian countries, African countries. Out of all these countries, Bhutan takes the largest share of the foreign aid. Similarly, Nepal, we are giving, it has been risen from 880 to 900 something. So the best thing to do in a case like this is that China is gone all out. Its footprints have intensified and increased all over the world, let alone our neighborhood. It has gone hyper because we have been gifted or endowed with those attributes which the geography, by virtue of the geography, we have been actually credited with. And culture. These are the two aspects, geography and the culture. That's why the neighbor is more naturally aligned to India than they're aligned to the China. That is why, in order to keep the sea lanes of communication, like General Deshwant brought it out, because his economy, in order to boom, in order to have 9 to 11% of GDP rate of growth, his economy has to be provided with sustained supply of energy. Energy security requires sea lanes of communication to be secure and safe. For that, it requires foothold, like, Hambantota, all these places. So therefore, what I'm coming to is, I have a point to actually share here with the forum. And thanks to General Bardoloi for having brought out those classified issues which are not known to the viewers. My point is that if China is doing all this, basically to indicate out of so many countries that it has settled its borders with, 14 countries out of 14, 12 have been done, 2 are left, Bhutan and India. If all these exercise that he's pushing us to is meant actually to indicate that settle the border issue, so why isn't India taking an initiative? Why can't we think something out of the box like Mr. Jaidev Saikia? He's a very, very established commentator. In fact, in your channel, we are proud to share here to our viewers that you only have given that proposal, something out of the box of line of amity. So why not we consider such like issues and think out of the box, try and find a solution. After all, Chow En-lai came in 1960 offering a package. Similar package was offered to Atal Bihari Vajpayee when he went in 79 as the foreign minister. Also, a similar package was made by Deng Xiaoping to Rajiv Gandhi, our honorable prime minister then in 1988. And in 2003, I am told, when Mr. Atal Bihari Vajpayee had gone to China just to secure our ownership of Sikkim, final ownership of Sikkim, that is the time again he had been actually offered this particular package. In 2013, Dr. Manmohan Singh, our honorable prime minister, also was told nobody other than Xi Jinping that let's settle the borders at the earliest. So isn't it time for India to think in terms of going in for settling the border? Back to you, please.
Thank you so much for that. And this seems to be like a continuous failure of the political leadership and lack of a political will somehow. But before we go on to discuss that, General Dushyant Singh, you were mentioning about the legislative laws which have been framed very recently that's been enabling Chinese aggression to a very, very large extent in these areas. Now, can we anticipate any further legislative actions of a similar nature that will sort of propel and supplement the Chinese salami slicing strategies? And if yes, what are the possible options for India going forward?
Well, as far as India is concerned, to counter it by another legislative framework would not be the right way to go about. It's like, India took out the map of J&K, and then Pakistan followed suit by taking out the map of their own version of the map of J&K after Article 370 was abrogated. So I would not tread that line. What I would definitely tread is an approach which is focused on boundary resolution, right? Because the root of our problem is the boundary dispute. Why this boundary dispute has come about? It is because of the fact that China is today not being governed or ruled by a natural Chinese form of governance. If you look at China before 1949, it was a country which was more pacifist, more friendly oriented to India than being negative. Even if you look at ancient history, India and China have never had any major issues of dispute or differences, except when General Zorawar had gone from the north and tried to invade Tibet. And even there, the Chinese were only there as part of a vassal state of theirs being, invaded, because Tibet was not under China. Only the suzerainty was there with China.
Right.
Tibet remained independent throughout its history. So my thing is that the current differences and disputes which we are seeing are being created by a system of governance which is not natural Chinese.
Right.
So therefore, somewhere we have a scope to invoke that natural Chinese. And that we can do by creating an environment where we can offer a solution to the boundary dispute. I must caution here that it is easier said than done to say that we will give you this package,
Right.
of the line of amity, line of friendship, or you may call it as by any name, which we are trying to say that resolve the border between the two. The first and the foremost is you have to look inwardly also. India is a divided country in terms of religion, caste, leanings, ideologies. We have to prepare our own country to accept a different out of the box solution. So therefore, we have to work slowly on this. We have to first prepare our own internal political community on this. Thereafter, we have to prepare the intelligentsia on this, because they would then start discussing and debating this issue across the wider spectrum of security domain. And then the message would go down to the common public, which would be then ready to accept a radical proposal like this, that, okay, we are forgetting Galwan, we are forgetting 67, we are forgetting 1962, and we kind of now create a situation where we accept as is, where is kind of a solution, and convert it into a boundary, or tell it as a line of amity or line of friendship. It's a good approach. How to do it is something which is very, very important, and that is what we should focus upon.
Right.
We should take the low-hanging fruits, easily takeable. There are, out of this entire frontage of 3,300 odd kilometers, the disputes are only in 16 or 17 areas.
Right.
The rest of the areas can very easily be demarcated. We haven't even demarcated them.
Right.
Let's start one by one. Let's say that, okay, we bury our hatchets. So the framework should be, we take out a proposal saying that we are ready to resolve the boundary dispute. Let's start first with where there are no disputes.
Right. So I agree with you, because there is already
make a boundary commission. Let them start doing this demarcation and move ahead. It should be beyond what is already existing. China study group is already existing. Joint working group is already existing. A solution has to be beyond these existing frameworks which we already have.
Right. But I've heard a lot of things about the China study group, that they don't have a very rooted understanding of the entire issue. But without having to, go there.
That's why I said it has to be beyond this. It has to be beyond this.
Right. General Bardolai, do you agree with what General Dushyant is trying to say? And essentially, what are the solutions that we can focus on? And it's also about of social condition and conditioning and psychological conditioning, right? Because we've grown up hating Pakistan. So any chance of a pacifistic attitude towards the country will perhaps not be seen in a very positive way by the citizenry, by the government, and by different institutions in India.
Okay, firstly, I just taking a point from where Jan Dushan has left. I think it is no doubt that China is trying to isolate India, and Bhutan problem at Doklam area is part of it. Second, he also said that about the challenges to having a package deal. But when it comes to Bhutan and China boundary, the intensity of the interest which China is showing to solve the problem is different than what is the interest both the countries have shown in context of India and China boundary. That is one part. So, and you brought out the issue of the social context. Yes, this take you back once more. Like we are born after independence. No matter how much we claim, it is very difficult to actually feel it, the pain of the freedom struggle. Similarly, in Bhutan, what they had gone through it, the new generation of the people, they may not be much interested. Earlier they used to come to India to study. They had to fly over India. They go to Thailand to take hospital treatment. They go and study in Australia, Singapore, many other countries. So when I interacted, even the army officers said, why don't you come to RR hospital, free treatment. And literally one has to push that they will get VIP treatment. They do not want to come because at the cost of money, when they go to other countries, Thailand and holidaying, they get a very, very warm welcome. Their commerce and business strategy is much better than ours. Like Sudhakar has brought out earlier, that we take things for granted. Relationship with Bhutan and India is something, it is not that, a lame man is walking on the roadside. We decide to help that man with a crutch, but write it down, presented by India or Bordele to finish everything. So once you consider them as a younger brother, if you consider them, we must give them the feeling. Younger brother is not for bullying. We got to stand by them. We have to stand their sides. But we have been always taking things for granted, this relationship, but we have failed to nurture the relationship. And this is not the political failure, it's a bureaucratic failure, because they don't seem to understand, do not want to hear that what is what is coming from the ground. There's an unfortunate ground. I think Galwan has been a great lesson for them. So I think the people-to-people contact is very important. I think we must prepare our people, and certainly writing like Bharat Kanrad will not help them. That is very, very important. That a second part, that if you do not solve this boundary problem in Doklam area, I thought I'll let you know. Today, this is a territorial gain for China after 2017 in Doklam Plateau.
Right.
But tactically, they are very vulnerable because the way Indian military positions are there on the sides. So how do they mitigate that? They can mitigate that either by getting assurance from India. The assurance cannot be verbal, that we look after you. It has to be in writing. The writing, I leave it to you. Writing has to be only a demarcated boundary, like Dan Dushan also has brought out. And how do you do the difference? Or they will take care militarily, occupying a position which will mitigate the vulnerability. In the first intervention, Jan Sudhakar brought out Jamphir Ridge. That is a kind of watershed, and that is in the Bhutan territory. If I were the PLA in China, my next stop would be Jamphir Ridge. And when they come there, what do? Can Bhutan do anything? They cannot. They have got nearly 10,000 soldiers, about 1,000 Royal Bhutan. They cannot do anything. So now when that happens, do you think that India can intervene? There's a big political diplomatic questions. I do not know. And at that point of time, what happens? I really do not know what is the relationship between India and Bhutan. Third issue is that in a democratic setup, democracy only becomes stronger and stronger. Today, the boundary solution can be found because the K4, the fourth king voice is the final, nobody questions that. But tomorrow, situation may come in because the younger generation, they're looking for only development. They say, what is wrong in it establishing a relationship with China? Why don't you solve this? In any case, we do not have any documents about Doklam area. So should they decide to take a suo motu decision in the parliament, Bhutan parliament, ignoring what the king says, then I think China will have the last laugh, and you are getting into the trap. Time is still there. I think we can find ways and means to solve the problem.
Thank you so much for that, sir. Jan Sudhakarji, may I request you to conclude this session by also sharing your thoughts on this and what are the possible corrective measures going forward?
Yeah, Sharon, very quickly, because time almost is closing down. And firstly, we have spoken about this new land border law, which has been promulgated by China. Also, we have spoken about the MOU. Those China watchers, when I contacted the specialist today, because I couldn't download the documents, the MOU, those who have got it in their hand and they have perused and have shared with me today, that all that the sum and substance of the MOU says that they have agreed to establish an agreement to progress the boundary talks. Okay, there is nothing substantive. There is no tangible commitment given by any of the parties. This is one part I thought I must share with you. Second issue that I wanted to share with you about the land border law. The highlight of that land border law is that the sovereignty of this particular, the sovereignty of the nation or the land will be protected at all cost. It is inviolable. Basically, my understanding of the entire agreement or this particular law is that the point of accountability has been transferred in a holistic manner to the PLA. Earlier, it was ambiguous. So all these things, when I joined the dots, I found perhaps Galwan had something to do. This Galwan incident has given a jerk to the leadership at the highest level, because there has been a lot of internal challenges and disorder and questioning which is taking place, maybe for the first time, wherein the leadership has been questioned in order to address those issues, plus also to evolve or counter to Article 370, abrogation of Article 370, which General Dushan very beautifully covered. They have gone in for this. Third thing, I am coming straight to the countermeasure. One of the wildest card which was shared by a student preparing for civil services during one of my lectures on similar subject was, why don't we go in for tunneling in the corridor? You go in for multiple tunneling and that gives you connectivity, say 100 kilometers, 200 kilometers or 50 kilometers.
But there are clearly topographical difficulties there, right? Do you think that's possible? We have the capacity for it.
Yes, very much possible. Why not? If we can have a tunnel at Sela Pass, Sela incidentally it's a pass with a lot of loose soil. At one point in time, our own scientists, they had actually rejected that no tunnel can be built. The same scientists have gone and built a tunnel today. So it is possible. Last point I am saying, what China is trying with Bhutan, why can't India try the same thing with Bhutan and Bangladesh? Why can't we widen? Like General Bardolai has brought out a beautiful point. Why is he doing what he is doing? Why is he trying to have the package deal, the central portion, 495 square kilometers, be exchanged with 269, including Doklam, that is the western flank, so as to widen the Chumbi Valley narrow avenue? Why can't we think in those terms? Why can't we go in for? If America could buy a huge chunk of land of Mexico for $70 billion, long time back, okay, and settle the border, why don't you go in for similar kind of negotiations? That's it. Thank you so much. And the solution lies in resolving or finding a settlement, early settlement of border, as per my view. Secondly, what Jaidev Saikia has suggested as a out of the box is related to the Jimithang sector of West Kameng district of Arunachal Pradesh or Tawang district, where things have stabilized. There is a track which is built across the Namkachu. There is also a track this side. And over the past 30 odd years, there is no thoroughfare, nothing. So therefore, in such like places like General Dushan beautifully brought it out, we need to actually identify sector by sector. Maybe we could apply his theory or the proposal of line of amity to the extent as much as possible. That's it. Back to you, please.
Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining me today. This is such a complex issue, and honestly, in spite of doing a lot of reading, it's very difficult to understand these issues unless you witness the situation on the ground, and if you've explored all these areas. And hopefully I'll get to explore all of these areas one day and try to understand these issues better. I'm sure this segment will invite a lot of comments from different sections of the society, including the government as well. So please do let us know what you thought about this entire segment and the solutions that our veterans had to propose today. Thank you so much. And again, thank you so much for all the seva and sacrifice that all of you have done for the country. And Jai Hind, and thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thanks. Thanks, General Dushan.
Thanks,
Sudhakar,
sir.
sir. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, sir.
I had a bad communication day today, so.
No, but we could hear you well.
Please remember to subscribe to us and switch on the notifications for this channel. For our other social media links, more content, and to support our work, please visit citti.net. Dhanyavad. Namaskar.